And we are live. Welcome, mystery and thriller fans. I'm your on-air host, Sara DiVello, and I am so excited to host former CIA agent turned thriller author extraordinaire, the one and only Taylor Moore. Taylor, welcome to Mystery and Thriller Mavens. Tell us about Downrange.
Thanks for having me, Sarah. It's great to be here. I'm great to be on the show. Yeah, Downrange, man. It's coming out Tuesday. It's my debut novel, and I'm very proud of it.
Yay. And tell us the scoop of your hero, Garrett, as he's over there, hunting terrorists, climbing through the pines, or cedars. I didn't know they had cedars over there.
Yeah,
I didn't know they had snow over there. I'm learning so much as I read your book. So give us the scoop about Garrett and his journey.
Yeah, so basically Garrett, he starts out in the Hindu Kush mountain range in Afghanistan, and that's where the whole story begins. And it is a Texas-based thriller novel, but so I think people will be a little surprised when they see it starting there. But just so you know, it does end up in Texas. But the backstory behind that is that, and I don't want to give away any spoilers, but I'll just kind of set the stage for you. And so Garrett starts over. He's an undercover DEA agent, and he's working over there on a task force that's dealing with the poppy fields and the opium trade, and how it relates to terrorism. And so he happens to be in this spot in the Hindu Kush, and he's by himself, and he's in a place that he shouldn't be, and he sees something that he never should have saw. Is basically what happens. And he witnesses a massacre. These group of individuals come in and raise this village and pretty much wipe everyone out, everybody but this one 10-year-old boy who he rescues. And again, that puts him in a predicament. He couldn't let the kid die. He has to. So basically, he has to sort of fess up to where he was and why he was there. He takes the kid back and basically ends up in sort of on this protective custody assignment. And because of a lot of things that you'll find out throughout the book, he has to get that kid out of country. And so he thinks no better place to go than where he grew up on his family's ranch on the high plains of Texas. And because it's secluded, it's remote, it's a place that he knows like the back of his hand. And so, if he had to defend himself, he could do it pretty easily there. And but the idea is that nothing is going to happen. This is his family's home place. And so Garrett has a lot of issues beyond, terrorists and all those kind of things. He has been estranged from his family for a while, and he has some fence mending to do, so to speak, back on the ranch with his dad and brother. And they've had a lot of family tragedy, and there's a lot of stuff that goes on. Well, Garrett gets back to the ranch and immediately finds out that some things are not quite right back home. And he starts doing an investigation, and things go sort of from bad to worse. And he's sort of out of the frying pan and into the oven. And I'll kind of leave it at that. That's the way the book sort of starts off, and that's the way it kind of gets teed up. And then I'll let the readers follow it from there. But it's a wild journey for Garrett Kohl.
It's a wild, wild journey from the hills of Afghanistan to the wild, wild west, which nobody but you would know better because you yourself are a sixth-generation Texan. Talking here to the home crowd, you grew up about 60 miles from Houston. Houston was your big city. All the cool stuff happening there. The news, Murder by the Book, so much happening. And now here you are, Taylor, with your debut book, segueing over from a career in the CIA, and we're going to need to know all the dirty details because that's what we're here for. I just want to welcome everybody who is watching with us on Facebook, who's watching on YouTube, who's watching on my channels, Murder by the Book channels. Welcome, y'all. We're so happy you're here. If you've been here before, you know how this works. And if you're new, welcome. We're thrilled to have you. Here's how it works. Every Monday night for hashtag Mystery Mondays, because Mondays can be murder. We're going to have a killer good time here. I'm just going to be dropping puns all day. You're welcome. Every Monday night, I'm going to give you my hand-picked featured authors, and you get to ask them anything. You guys, here's your chance to ask a former CIA agent turned thriller author anything you want. Think of it like Vegas of the book world. What happens here stays here, and we're going to get it going. So just go ahead and get your questions going in the comments. I'll get them right over to Taylor. I want to welcome Glenn, welcome Jane, welcome Deb, welcome Alan, welcome Pam, Pat, Rebecca, Brandon, Deborah, Linda, Nancy, Darla, and everybody else. Welcome, y'all. We're so happy to have you. Let us know what questions you have for Taylor. Now, I know it always takes me a moment, so I'll kick off while you're thinking and typing. Taylor, you start this book off from the perspective of the little boy, of the 10-year-old boy who has just been kidnapped. He's terrified. Who wouldn't be? Stuck in the back of a van, bound and gagged, trying to escape, trying to figure that out. He has no idea that Garrett is going to ride to the rescue in his white Land Rover. Why did you start it off with the little boy? Tell us about that.
That's a good question. It didn't. I don't know why I did that. It's just one of those calls you make as a writer, and it wasn't always that way. And I try a few different starts, and but I've seen other writers do that, and I really I like that. I like that technique of sort of starting with the spot and then moving towards that spot, and throwing in a few red herrings and a few twists and turns that make people go, I know what's going to happen. I know what's going to happen, and then proving them wrong. And so it was really just kind of a fun device, in suspense to just kind of build that, that getting that reader thinking about how is this going to happen and how are we going to get to this point? Because everything looks fine. Everything looks okay, but it's not, it's going to happen. And so I like building to that point. And to me, it's just a fun way to tell a story.
Ooh, and you know a thing or two about hiding things, holding things back, keeping secrets. Taylor Moore, I'm sure, having learned that in your career at the CIA. Now, questions are already starting to come in, and I love this one from Linda. She said, what's the name of the book? And the name of the book is Downrange. But Taylor, tell us the story behind the title. First of all, what does this mean for those of us who are not sixth-generation Texans? Hi, me. Yeah. And also, did this arrive as a strike of genius? Were you like, yes, that's it? Or was this number 101 and you got 100 others on the cutting room floor? Fill us in.
Yeah, so when it comes to titles, there's a variety. When you go through that process with your editor and your publisher, you throw a bunch of them out there, and there were a lot of good ones that could have fit. But Downrange, I believe my agent said it just had to be Downrange. It was just too perfect, and it was perfect because the book is a bit unusual in that it is sort of a military operator style thriller, kind of mixed in with a modern day Western. And so the sort of downrange sort of gives you that sort of Western feel. But at the same time, downrange is a term used in the military. And that means, when people are overseas or off in a combat zone, you talk about being downrange, or if you're downrange in a shooting range, or, there's a variety of ways you can use it. And it fits in so many different capacities in this book. And so it was just kind of the perfect title for this particular story.
I love that. Thanks for the behind the scenes. We're here for it. Hi, Sally. Hi, Dave. Welcome. Now, Taylor, great question from Darla coming in. How many years with the CIA? How many years were you with the CIA? And why did you retire so young? Let's start with that. And then there's a cool second part to this question, but let's start there. How many years were you with the CIA, Taylor?
So I was with the CIA for 4 years, and then I left the CIA to do contract military intelligence work. So I spent about a decade, I would say, in the intelligence world. But it's a good question, and I remember I got asked this a while back, and my wife said, "You need a better answer to that." So unfortunately, I thought about why I left, and the reason I left was a variety of reasons. If anytime you make any big decision, it's never like one thing. It's always sort of a variety of things. But a big part of it was just lifestyle. It's a great place to work. It gave me the coolest opportunities. I still have my best friends in the world there. It was a wonderful place, and I loved it. But at the same time, it's a hard life, and it was just a kind of a personal decision. I'm a Texas boy. I was ready to get back to Texas, and I'd spent some time. I'd been gone for a while, and I was just ready to get back. And I had that opportunity to be based out of Texas to do contract military intelligence work, and so I just was ready to get back and be near family, be near friends. And we have our land. Like I said, grew up on a farm and ranch, and I wanted to be close to our land that we have, and just a variety of reasons for that. But yeah, it was a hard decision to leave the agency because, again, it was a great experience, so much opportunity. But at the same time, I never really left intel work. I was doing that with the military. I was proud to serve with those guys and try to help keep them safe and serve that mission. So again, I stuck with Intel, and I probably would have never left Intel had I not moved up to Amarillo. My wife was from here, and for family reasons, we sort of needed to relocate. And so I did, and ended up working in oil and gas. But honestly, that was when I started writing, really started taking writing seriously. I'd written my first novel about 20 years ago, and but never really took it serious. And then, but when I was up here, I really got serious about it. So it was the right move. I thought I'd work in Intel for the rest of my life. It was just kind of who I was, but I don't know. Things change, and life's a funny thing. You try to predict what you're going to do, and it doesn't turn out that way, but in a good way, because here I am.
Because here you are with us and Murder by the Book. Fabulous. Yeah. Now, just for people who don't know what military intelligence is, I don't know what that is. I mean, intelligence is knowledge, but what does that really mean? Donna says, you look 32, Taylor.
I'm older, much older. I'm almost 47. So yeah, everybody says, how did you pack this life into, so maybe I'm older than most people think. I don't know, but no, yeah. So I managed to pack a lot of stuff in a short amount of time, but I'm older than most people think. So yeah, so military intelligence, yeah, it's kind of how it sounds, and it's basically you're supporting the military in a variety of capacities. So in my bio, it kind of says, one of my goals was theater security cooperation. That was helping our military work with militaries around the world to, if they have problems, if they have issues, whether it's counterterrorism, counter narcotics, whatever it may be, we're there to support them and support their mission and help them. And then force protection was a big part of what we do. We just want to keep people safe when they go overseas. So we're always watching things on the ground. We're looking for danger. We're looking for places that they need to be careful. We're looking at the counterintelligence threats, counterterrorism threats, criminal threats, depending on where you are. So that's what we're doing all the time. We're trying to keep the warfighter out there fighting and keep them safe to the best of our ability. And again, a big part of that was counter narcotics, and that was working with our foreign partners to help them with that situation, because the drug situation can be difficult and dangerous here. Well, imagine, in Latin America, where you have cartels and all that working down there. That's extremely dangerous, and we're seeing the ramifications for that to a degree now, and in terms of immigration. So no, it's a big issue, and that's where our military and our government tries to help our partners out there to do the best that they can do.
Thank you for that background. Yeah. Let's get to the second part of Darla's question. Then we're heading to Donna's question next. First, Darla, though, how did you know for years that you wanted to be a writer? You said you wrote your first book 20 years ago. Did you know since you were just a little Texan running around the ranch, or was this sort of something you realized as you were working in Intel? Like, oh, I'd rather be typing books. What? Well, give us a sense of that.
Yeah, I've always been a storyteller, and I've always had a wild imagination, and I've always loved foreign travel and all things sort of exotic and foreign. So put those things together, and you have a thriller writer, I guess, or an international thriller, someone that's writing about the CIA and DEA and all those kind of things. And obviously that was my background, but but even before I did all that, I loved that. I loved Tom Clancy growing up, and I love James Bond. I love everything to do with spies. And so to me, those were the most fun stories to tell, the most fun stories that I like to watch and read, and Jack Ryan and all that kind of stuff, so that I wanted to grow up and be those guys. And so, I got to do it to an extent with my work experience. And then, but no, honestly, I never thought, oh, I'm going to be a writer. When I wrote my first book, again, that was about 20 years ago. It was kind of like running a marathon. Some people say, I just want to run a marathon to see if I can do it. And that was kind of like why I did it. It was one of those, I'm going to set a goal and just see if I can do it. I did it, and I never did anything with it. I just left it on my laptop, and that was that. And fast forward 20 years and or less than 20 years when I started working on this, it was something that was probably always deep within me. I always wanted to be a writer and tell stories, and I'm a screenwriter too. And I just love, whether it's, film or books or whatever it is, I like conveying that message and entertaining people. That's just what I do. Oops,
I was muting myself there in case my dog barked. It took me a second to unmute. Yeah. Thank you for that behind the scenes. And I love the idea of, could I do this? The way that some marathon runners might say that. Now, not me, obviously, I only run when chased, but
Yeah.
I totally get that challenge of, can I write this? Can I do this? And writing a book is a marathon. I mean, it's exhausting and it is a long haul. Anyone who thinks it's quick got another thing coming.
Yeah.
Donna, good question, Donna. She says, how many places on the map behind you have you been, Taylor?
Yeah, every good intel guy has a map handy. That's just what we live by. So I've got to have my big map back there. I've been quite a few places. I guess the most exotic place is Antarctica. Went to, yeah, I ended up, this was before all my agency experience and all that. I ended up backpacking across South America and started in Argentina, went to Uruguay, Bolivia, Chile, Peru. I'm probably leaving something. I went to kind of kind of near Brazil and some places, to Iguazu Falls. But but yeah, I had this opportunity to go on a Russian research vessel down to Antarctica, so I took it, and so that's probably the wildest, craziest place I've ever been. And it was kind of a funny experience. I didn't even tell my parents I was going. I was only 24, and I called them from Antarctica, and I think it was like $25 a minute or something. So I called, or $50. It was something crazy. So I called and I said, Mom, I'm in Antarctica. I can't talk. It's $50 a minute or something. I said, I gotta go, but love you. Bye. And so yeah, so I guess my whole life I've had sort of these wild experiences and desire to do take the road less traveled, which is the Drake Passage to Antarctica in this particular case.
Oh my goodness. Donna is saying, wow, just wow. So
Yeah.
cool. Do you speak Spanish, Taylor? How are you navigating around down there?
My Spanish, I did speak Spanish. It's pretty rusty now, but that was kind of a funny experience too. I went to Texas A&M University, and I'd taken quite a bit of Spanish and lived down in Mexico for a summer, and so I had that sort of Spanish from Mexico. And when I moved to Argentina, I arrived, and it was nothing. It was like an entirely different language. So I ended up I learned that more Argentine type of Spanish. So while I was down there, yeah, I was pretty, I wouldn't say fluent, but pretty good. I could get around and read books and read the newspaper, and it was kind of a good experience doing the way I did, taking that solo journey across South America. Because if you wanted to eat, and if you wanted to find a place to sleep, a roof over your head, you had to be able to speak, and so it was a good incentive to learn the language.
Wow. That's so cool. And yes, that is a good incentive because
Yeah.
I personally would like someplace to sleep that is not
Yeah.
outside.
All right.
Sharon Tubb, community member there. Great to have you back. She says that is one big adventure.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Oh my goodness. So speaking of adventures, Taylor, the adventures of Garrett
Mhm.
are racking up incredible praise. Brad Taylor, an author that you shared, you are an admirer of his
Mhm.
work,
Yeah.
says, having lived it, Taylor Moore hits every bit of the cost of counterterrorism in downrange. But the story is so much more. It is a riveting thriller with a family in crisis at the core. It's my kind of book. Amazing praise there from one of your favorite
Mhm.
authors. That must have felt really great to get.
Yeah, absolutely. So you got, Mark Greaney and Don Bentley and Brad Taylor and a few of those guys, Mike Matt. I mean, to have these guys that when you're trying to come up in this business, those are your heroes, and to have them actually blurb your book it's really it's as surreal as it gets, to think that I'm reading these guys and just wanting to be like them, and then the next moment they're reading your book and becoming your friends, and it's really wild and really fun.
Yay! Mark Greaney raving that Downrange is an intense, authentic, and spellbinding powerhouse that pulls no punches. So again, another rave review from another hero of yours.
Hmm.
Regina, welcome. David, welcome. Lisa, welcome. Martin, David, welcome. Regina would like to know, is Garrett Kohl going to be a series, or is this a standalone book? Taylor, what's your vision? What you working on? Give us the
Oh,
scoop.
it's absolutely going to be a series. Yeah, book two is already in the hands of my editor, so I'm waiting to get that back from him. So no, book two is already in. Book three, I think I've outlined maybe 4, 5, and 6, 3, 4, 5, 3, 4, 5. So no, I've already got, I already know where the story's going, and it will be a series. So yeah, and I've kind of been telling people, I said, if you pay attention as you're reading these books, because I'm going to use a lot of the same characters, and it might be a chance meeting with the character that becomes a big player in the next one, or book 3 or book 4. So kind of pay attention, and I start jumping in book 2. I start jumping into people's different points of view. So it's kind of fun. You might get to know a character just through Garrett's eyes, and then the next thing you know, you're going to see their point of view and how they interact with him and what they think of him. And so I hope it'll be. I think it's going to be fun. I hope it'll be fun for readers.
Yay! Regina is saying, yay! Regina, speaking for all of us, fantastic news. I want to remind y'all that the book is for sale starting tomorrow, but you can pre-order it today. So I'm popping the link right up here on the comments. So grab your copy from Murder by the Book, our favorite bookstore. Right here is the link for you to grab it so that tomorrow it'll ship on out to you and you can be reading the adventures of Garrett Kohl right along with me. So one of my favorite characters is a guy named Joe Bob Dawson. So that guy is hilarious. So some of my favorite quotes are, so for those who have not read it, Joe Bob Dawson is Garrett's teacher at the DEA. And he says stuff like, I didn't get this old by accident, which I'm going to start saying all the time. I'm going to be like, y'all, I didn't get this old by accident, because it's so funny, but it's also so true, especially in that line of work. Like that guy saying, I'm careful, I'm cautious, I'm smart, I'm strategic. I'm living when maybe not everyone is. He also says things like, I want to meet Jesus, but not today. So I think the question I have is Joe Bob Dawson based on anyone IRL in real life? And will Joe Bob be joining us in future Garrett Kohl adventures?
Yeah, I think there'll be some more Joe Bob-isms to come up in the future. But no, he's not a real person. But, there's always again, I was CIA, not DEA, but there was always those sort of old hands around that that taught you a lot, and they always had some funny things to say, but it was meaningful, right? I didn't get this old by accident, and you're kind of like, yeah, you didn't, you survived some pretty crazy stuff, and there must be a reason, and tell me why, and so for me, more than anything, it was I had some really neat opportunities. Well, I went through some great training at the agency, but also had the opportunity to be around some guys that came back as contractors, and they'd been really high up at the agency and done some amazing things. So I would just, kind of pull up a chair and just listen to these guys tell stories. And it was kind of like Joe Bob-isms, they would say, let me tell you about this time that, an anaconda wrecked into my car. I mean, it'd be something insane and on my way to meet someone and like, what did you do? And, it's like, well, yeah, your car's ruined. I mean, what do you, so there was always some wild tale. And obviously I as the writer in me was sort of like soaking all those in. I was like, those are just fantastic. So none of those I'd ever heard. I made those all up, but there were things like those Joe Bob-isms. So no, you'll hear more as the book series unwinds.
I just love him because it really captures, I think, for me, the tone of this book. It is dangerous. It is there's so much on the line, but in order to cope, I wouldn't make it, Taylor. I would make it because I'd be like, oh my God, but those guys are making it because they're able to take things in stride, and the way they're able to take things in stride is to manage them and kind of be one of these old hands and these Southern sounding these Joe Bob-isms. I mean, I'm here for the I think we should get Joe Bob-isms trending on Twitter because they're fantastic. Taylor, let me ask you. So you open with this kidnapped kid. Garrett quickly, I'm not giving any spoilers, but there's a big scary shootout very quickly. Garrett has to rescue the kid, and things only pick up from there. Now there's an action-packed book. What is your favorite scene in this book, without any spoilers? If you can't tell us what it is, tell us where it is, and then I have a second part of my question too.
Okay. The funny thing about that, the first, my favorite scene is the first scene that I ever wrote. And that was when my agent, a lot of people don't know this, but I was not. This was not the book that I got my agent with. Yeah, I was writing a more traditional CIA spy thriller, kind of more in the Vince Flynn, that vein. And Garrett Kohl was just a side character in that book. And my agent loved him, and honestly, I love him. He was kind of still in the show, and I was kind of waiting for someone to suggest this, and my agent did. He said, "This is your protagonist right there." And so he said, "What about bringing Garrett back to Texas?" And so like any writer, I nearly fell to pieces at the thought of trashing the first book I'd rewritten like several times and starting from scratch. But I did. It was the right call. And but before I did, I said, well, let me see what I can do. And I woke up that next morning about 3 o'clock in the morning because I couldn't sleep, thinking about having to rewrite this whole thing. And I wrote this one scene. It was the scene when Garrett comes home for the first time and sees his dad. And that was a real meaningful scene for me. There's some comedy in it. There's some sadness. But it's still one of my favorite scenes because Garrett is coming home from being gone for a long time. And it transitions from that, you're right. It's that sort of shoot 'em up like thing. And you find he's a real person and he's got real sadness in his life and he's got things going on. He's a real person. It's kind of a funny thing because, we talk about, we're kind of joking around about, these people doing these jobs, but, everybody's just a normal person doing sort of an extraordinary type occupation or whatever, and you're putting in these, but everybody's just from a normal family for the most part. And everybody but you get this training and it's the Joe Bobs of the world that without them, they've been there, done that. And they sort of teach you how to survive. And so anyhow, but no, that was my favorite part is, and again, not to give anything away, but it's when Garrett comes home after being gone for a long time.
Oh, I love that. I love that scene because it resonates with a poignancy. It's painful, but it's heartwarming,
Mm-hmm.
but it has all of those elements. And I love that. And you're right. It deepens who Garrett is for us. He's not just a badass with a gun and a Carhartt jacket or whatever.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
Around the cedars in Afghanistan. He's beating the Taliban. He's a dude from Texas and he has heartbreak and family issues too. He's not just this not vigilante, but he's not just this vigilante kind of guy.
Yeah, right.
Welcome, Agnes. Welcome, Sue. Welcome, Jay. Welcome, Elaine. Welcome, Deanne. Welcome, everybody. We're so happy to have you here. Taylor, what was the hardest scene for you to write? As a writer, if I had to rewrite the entire book, I mean, first I would fall on the floor. I would kick. I would scream. I'd bang my head on the desk. I'd start day drinking. I mean, it would be ugly. Yeah. I'd use my dog to dry my tears. I mean, it would be such a bad scene, but you did it. Yeah. Welcome, Melissa. Great to have you. What was the hardest scene for you to write in this book? Was it the homecoming scene or another
one? Do you mean hard, like technically hard, or do you mean hard, like emotionally hard?
Either. I want to hear both because what I love about this book is it's so specific. So from the sound of the gunshots, which you describe as a ting, ting, like a ting sound, from how many shots are in each round to having to pull out the magazine, put the next magazine in. What I love about interviewing people who have done this in real life, like yourself and Alma Katsu, my other CIA agent I hosted, or Bruce Coughlin, who was the head of the detective, the homicide unit in Portland, Maine for 30 years. I know that as a reader, I can count on your book being very, very accurate because you've been there, you've lived this life. So I just devour all those details. I love that accuracy. So I'm guessing that the accuracy wasn't the hard part for you. What was the hard part for you?
Well, surprise. Well, I mean, honestly, to be honest, the action scenes were kind of hard, and it wasn't that. They're just written in a different way, and so this is another thing. Again, a great agent, John Talbot. He really worked with me on my action scenes, and I think what he said that I was doing at the time was sort of skimming over what was happening. And I wasn't giving that level of detail. And so I really had to go back and look at some of the great writers, like, the Brad Taylors, and some of these guys and Mark Greaney, all these guys that wrote action really well, and sort of slow it down a little bit and take my time and sort of like, come out, kind of just sort of break it out a little bit further. And so once I'd learned how to do that, then the action scenes really come alive. But no, that was a challenge. Technically, that was a challenge for me. Because again, I think I was just sort of glossing over what was happening, and I don't really know why. It's just a different way of writing. It's not like writing dialogue. It's not like writing a car chase, it's something totally different, as you say, to talk about the mag changes and do all that. And then and unfortunately, I've got really I have a lot of good friends that former Navy SEALs, former Green Berets, former Rangers, people that could really help me that have been in a lot of combat. And I would give them these scenes to write. And I have friends that were former Night Stalker pilots, that from the helicopter scenes and fire rescue guys and people that could really, I would write it. I'd do my best. I'd literally look at like FAA manuals for helicopters and try to get it all right. And on the shooting stuff, I do a lot of that, myself, to try to practice, to try to, smell what it smells like, feel what it feels like, all that kind of thing. And but having these guys that really know what they're doing helped a lot. So that was one aspect. You talk about the scenes that were like hard to write, maybe emotionally. That was that one, him coming home, was a sad one. It was just kind of sad because I felt for him. Towards the end, well, I don't want to give anything away. This would be a spoiler, but dealing with the boy, the 10-year-old boy, and the loss that he goes through, some of those scenes were hard to write because I have small children, and so you just feel for what that kid would be going through. But I think that's what made what his readers have gravitated toward, and what has made this book a little special is the fact that there is some emotion, there's some heart to it, and it's about family. It's not just bombs and bullets and all those kind of things and bad guys. It's really about heart. It's about family. It's about struggle, and it's about forgiveness and loss and pain and on all that stuff that comes together. So I think some of those things were hard to write, but I think it was worth doing it and worth putting them into the story.
I love that. I love that. Donna is saying it's so lucky that you have these kinds of contacts. So, oops, I'm already skipping ahead. She said, you're so lucky that you have these contacts. What other contacts did you draw on to get this book just right?
Yeah. So the military, that's an obvious one. And I reached out to, this is still in the vein of the military thing, but in a different capacity. I write a little bit about survivor's guilt. And that, which is a big, for veterans, that's a real thing. It's a very painful process that they go through if they come back and friends don't make it. And a little bit about PTSD, not so much on that end, but more of that survivor's guilt. And so I reached out to a Marine friend of mine that had suffered from things like that, and I wanted to get that right. I wanted to make sure that was accurate, as accurate as the helicopter or the shooting or whatever it is. That was something that was very important to me. The horse stuff, that was another one I wanted to get right. I grew up on horseback, I grew up riding, but there are people that know so much more about that than I do. And so fortunately, one of my best friends in college, he was a big cutting horse guy. And so he knew that much more. So he also happened to be an attorney. And so I would say, you're the horse guy and the legal guy here, so make sure. And so he would read it and go over it with a fine tooth comb and really get that right. The history, I wanted to get that Texas history. There's some snippets of Texas history. So fortunately, I have a history professor here at West Texas A&M that's been very helpful, and a former curator of the museum here, the Panhandle Plains Museum, that would go over my history for me and make sure that I got that right. So I do my best to try to make it accurate. I know somebody will call me out someday and go, "You didn't get this right," or "This thing is wrong," or whatever. And if I did, I'm sorry. Trust me, it was not for a lack of trying. So no, I work hard on accuracy if I can get it. I try to get that expertise in.
I love it. I love it. I grew up around horses too, quarter horses, and
Yeah.
I rode competitively and I judged competitively.
Okay.
State champion here, Taylor. So,
well, did I get it right?
I'm going to make a list and send it to you.
Okay, there you go.
You're getting everything right. You're getting everything right. The sun is coming in my window. Donna would like to know, is there a bit of taste that floats into a mouth after one fires a gun? Donna, I love the specificity of that question. Taylor, give us the skinny.
Yeah, man, that's a good question, because you read about that in books all the time. Yeah, there's a taste. I guess there's that sort of gunpowder, that burnt powder that you sort of taste, or really you smell. I would say you smell it more than anything. And if you're firing full auto, sometimes it'll come back and waft into your eyes and kind of burn a little bit. But yeah, there is a little bit of that. But to me, it's more of a smell. It's a smell. I love the smell, honestly. I don't like the burn in my eyes, but I like the smell.
I was muted again. We did not know we were going to learn that about you today, Taylor. We did not know that you had the smell thing.
Yeah.
But you know what? I always ask authors to share their weird. So now I won't have to ask because I know.
Yeah, there you go. You got that covered.
I love it. Ricky would like to know, why did you choose to have Garrett hunt with a bow rather than a rifle? I love the specificity of that. Taylor, why?
Well, that's a good question. Bow hunters, that's a big thing. That's a big deal. And there's a lot of hunters who have, if they, it's not that they won't hunt with a rifle, but they like the challenge of a bow, and a bow is extremely challenging. And Garrett likes the challenge. He grew up hunting. And so that's just kind of what he does. And then also he has that Comanche background. And so that's something that goes back to his ancestry. He's part Native American, and so that's something that's just sort of built into his DNA and something that he grew up doing. And so there's a couple of reasons, but bow hunting is big, and people that are into it are really into it. And it's just extremely challenging. And that was something I did. Again, I'm always trying to get it right. So I went up with a bow hunter and up kind of really on a ranch nearby where the book is set. And this guy took me out and kind of showed me, let me shoot the bow, and he showed me how to track animals and do all these kind of things. I'd grown up hunting and doing that, but never to the level of what these bow hunters do, because they've got to get in really close. It's not like a rifle where you're, hundreds of yards out. You got to get in there close. And so these guys, it's a real technique. And so that's why Garrett does it, and that's why he's passing it on to Asadi.
I love that. And actually, it's funny. My friend is the head of USA Gymnastics. So she's in Tokyo right now with the Olympics, and she just went to the archery competition. Right. And she has access to all the behind the scenes with the athletes because she's, this high up person. And she got to hold the bow and shoot it. And until she posted a picture, I didn't actually realize how enormous the bows are. I mean, we're talking very, very big and very heavy.
Big. Yeah. And pulling back that string. I mean, I remember trying, when this guy, I went to an archery shop beforehand and tried it, and I was like, fine. Well, I went out with this big old cowboy, man, and he was this hunter, and I mean, I don't know what how much, the pounds or, whatever, but whatever it was, I was like, and it's amazing. I mean, it takes real strength to pull that string back.
Yeah.
So
it's not as easy as it looks, and it doesn't look that easy.
No, it's not.
Welcome, Charlie. Welcome, Taylor. Welcome, Caroline. Great to have you here. Donna says, I have never read about a taste before. And he loved the smell of napalm in the morning. LOL. That's Taylor's perfume, or cologne.
That's one of my all-time favorite movies, by the way, Apocalypse Now. I love the smell of napalm in the morning. And Robert Duvall is one of my all-time favorite actors. So love it. Love it, Donna. Thank you.
Thank you, Donna. She says, Bose, the silent killer. Yeah. Exactly. Oh my gosh, I just realized we are over time. So any last questions for Taylor, get them going in the comments. This is your chance to ask this incredible CIA agent turned thriller author, 6th generation Texan, anything you want to know. He is here for it, you guys. So get your questions going. And I think we can take 1 or 2 more. Meanwhile, I will ask Taylor, what is it that you want people to leave downrange with? What do you want us to walk away having felt, having experienced, having learned, felt, whatever? Tell us.
I want people, I write these books for entertainment. And I want to bring joy into people's lives, because there's nothing better than getting sucked into a wonderful thriller novel. And people, I get a lot of questions about, what's your all-time favorite thriller novel? And for me, it was The Charm School by Nelson DeMille. And I always say I remember exactly where I was and exactly how I felt when I read that book. And I was just sucked into the story. I was just in it. And I think I'll always be chasing that as a writer to do what DeMille did in that book. But that's what I want. I want people to get into the book and just feel like you're there with the characters and love the characters. I want to be friends with the characters and just come out just purely entertained and with pure joy. And just I want pure escapism. I just want you to be on the back of a quarter horse riding across the plains and, chasing down bad guys. And I want you to be right there with Garrett Kohl and Asadi, the 10-year-old. And that's what I want. I want just pure entertainment and pure joy from the reader, and, kind of wipe the sweat of your brow when you're done and be ready for the next one.
Ah, I love that. Yes, because we've all had that experience. We're all passionate about books here. We've all had that experience of being sucked in and loving that. John is saying he's about 85% through the arc. That's the advanced reader copy. He is loving it. Thank you. He says, what happens with Garrett in the next novel? Yeah, what's Garrett going to get into?
Well, I'm not going to tell you anything other than, boy, just when he gets out of one bit of trouble, and the more trouble finds him, and so you're just gonna have to find out. But it's gonna it's gonna be fun. It's gonna be a fun next book. I think people always say if you like Downrange, you're gonna love the second book, whatever that title may be. You're gonna love it.
Ooh, well, we cannot wait. Donna is saying thank you very much and best of luck.
Thank you.
This has been so great to have you. She would like to know, do you read the W.E.B. Griffin books?
I don't, but I should. I don't, but that's always been on my list. It's just, there's a certain amount of books you can get through, but I would like to read some of those.
Who do you like to read, Taylor? Besides Tom Clancy.
It's funny, since I started writing nonfiction, or since I started writing fiction, I read mostly nonfiction because I'm always trying to prep for the next book. So it's been a few years. Although I'm reading Don Bentley, his follow-up to Without Sanction, and I'm blanking on the name, but I'm about halfway through that, and it's phenomenal. So if you haven't read Don Bentley, he's great, and he just took over the Tom Clancy's Jack Ryan Jr. series. So I am reading that now, and both books. The first one and the second are just fantastic.
Excellent. Last question from Debbie. She says, do former CIA agents have to protect their knowledge or identity for any reason? Great question, Debbie. Taylor, give us the skinny.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a big part of the job, is working undercover and doing that kind of thing. So there's levels of how you protect your identity. And some people, it's to the sort of Jason Bourne extreme, if you want to think of it that way. And some of it's a little bit lighter of a cover, just depending on what your job is and what you're doing and what the mission is. But absolutely, that's a big part of the job.
Wow. Well, it has been a pleasure and an honor to host you, sir. Thank you so much for coming on and telling us all about your book. I'm posting the link again here in the comments for anyone to grab their copy, because you're going to want to get it from our favorite store, Murder by the Book. Taylor, it has been so great getting the behind the scenes scoop on Downrange, and we can't wait to have you back for Garrett's next adventure.
I'll be happy to come back. Thanks for having me, Sarah.
Everybody have a great night. I will see you at 7 p.m. Eastern, aka in 20 minutes, 6 p.m. Central, coming up with Alessandra Torri, and 8 p.m. / 7 p.m. Central with Chandler Baker. See you in a few minutes.